All right, here we go. Here on with Daniel Nuno. Thanks for coming on, Daniel.
Yeah, man. So excited to be here.
So what's going on today? How you doing? You're getting ready to have a baby, right?
Yeah, man. Literally any day.
Anytime. You were at the hospital when I talked to you last week thinking you were going to, right?
Yeah, so my wife called me. I was just about to hit my first working set of bench press.
Yeah.
And my wife calls. She's like, the doctor said that they may have to induce me today, so I'm going to the hospital, but can we go home first and grab our stuff? I'm like, yeah, I'm out of here. I pack my bag. I'm freaking running out, dude. Everyone's probably like, what the heck is this dude doing? I just jet. And anyways, we ended up going in there for a few hours. It was because she had high blood pressure at the doctor's office. And so she's already 39 weeks.
Been there 3 times, man. And they never come when you expect it. So, yeah.
She did have a dream, though. She was like, well, my wife has had 2 dreams now. One of them was, that her water broke and she went into labor. That was like, a few nights ago.
Yeah.
And the other one was that we were having a girl, which we're having a boy.
Yeah.
So,
awesome.
Maybe we'll have another one.
You gotta have a girl. You gotta have a girl. Being a girl dad's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
and you have 3 kids.
that's 3, once a decade. I've had a kid since 1997.
Keeping you young,
so
man.
Joey's 27. He's friends with Cole. He's a firefighter up in Malibu, and I've got a 14-year-old finishing 8th grade right now, and I've got a 5-year-old little girl.
What?
So yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. That's
so
beautiful.
If I could write a book, How Not to Have Kids, don't do that.
The 10-year gap?
No, because you get done changing diapers and you finally get them a little bit self-sufficient, and then you go back to not sleeping, and so you might as well just condense that.
Yeah, have them close.
Yeah. So thanks for coming on. This is a podcast about people that I'm interested in, and obviously I'm in recovery, and you and I are into a lot of the same things, healthy living, right? Just getting better, you know. And first question I want to start out with, right, is tell me about that moment in your life where it was a complete turning point. You were in a dark spot, and things just clicked for you, and you started moving in the right direction. Yeah,
I actually thought about this recently, and so the moment. So I can first preface it like this. So I've had a few moments where I'm like, man, I got a problem.
Mm-hmm.
My thing was actually a lot of things. We'll get into that, but it was Thanksgiving 2017.
Okay.
I was with my family at my parents' house, and my parents asked me, just not to drink in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I would not drink in the house,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes I would. But this, on Thanksgiving, I was like, I'm not going to do that. So I left all my alcohol in my car. We're sitting there. My family's having a genuinely good time with each other. I could tell because I'm watching them. Everyone's just engaging. They're laughing. And all I could think about is, when are these people going to stop talking? When will there be a big enough break that I can organically move out to my car to have some alcohol?
Right.
Because I don't feel comfortable here without it in my system.
Yeah.
I didn't like the way I felt. And I found that little gap. And while I was drinking, I was like, in my car, I was like, man, like I need help, I actually, that same day, I got a letter from my job telling me, you're fired for not showing up to work for a week.
Yeah.
And that happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it just came to the point where, actually in my mind, there were 2 things going on. 1, I recognized I had a problem. 2, I didn't really want to address the real problem. And so I thought that getting help would give me a reset, kind of like it would restore everyone's faith in me. So I asked my mom to help me find a rehab.
And this was on Thanksgiving.
This was on Thanksgiving in 2017. So we Google it, we call. They're like, do you want to come to California?
Oh, where were you?
I was in Utah.
Okay, that's right. You grew up in Utah. Okay, we'll get to that in a minute. Okay. So,
Right. Well, we'll get into that. I actually grew up in Northern California, but I'd been living in Utah for the last 10 years.
Okay.
And so I was in Utah thinking I was going to go somewhere in Utah. Never been to rehab. Just wasn't familiar with that. And so they're like, do you want to come to California? I was like, yeah, I freaking love California. I miss California. So I did. I came out, and my life's never been the same.
Nice. Was
Yeah.
that the first time you went to rehab?
First time.
Yeah. Awesome.
First time. Yep.
Awesome. So let's back up a little bit. You were born in Northern California?
Born in Northern California, a little town called Willits. It's in Mendocino County. They're famously known for marijuana up there in that area. A lot of like hippies and stuff. I'm the youngest of 6 kids, so I only spent 2 years there. Then we moved to Modesto, which is also like the Central Valley, Northern California. Raised there, youngest of 6. 4 older sisters, 1 older brother. Mormon family, pretty connected with our religious community, and I would say all in all, I had a really cool upbringing.
So just a normal childhood and a
Normal childhood
a big family with lots of brothers and sisters.
Yeah,
and you guys' faith was a center point of the family.
Oh yeah, for sure. So we grew up. By the time I came along, my parents weren't as strict with me, and I was more of like an adventurous type.
Yeah, I'm the oldest. We always get the strict part, and then as you go down the line, like I'm there with my daughter. It's
you're like, you get ready when you're
go
ready.
ahead and do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So
It's funny. I have a lot of those conversations now, just stepping into being a parent, and it's funny to hear like everybody's experience, either as the oldest or having multiple children, and they're like, with my oldest, I was like very strict, and with my youngest, I'm like, go do what you got to do, you'll be all right. So that's where I was. Like my parents, when I came along, they were just like,
they were tired, bro. Dude. 6 kids.
They're like, you're getting raised by the other kids, this is Lord of the Flies, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
Which is what I attribute like my ability to like navigate social situations really well.
Right.
To being the youngest, because when you're the youngest, you got to kind of just get in where you fit in and not be too much of a nuisance, but also like be kind of likable, and so that's kind of what I attribute that to. I'm grateful for that, but yeah, my parents, by the time I came along, were just like, do your best,
right.
And so in high school, I experimented with marijuana, alcohol. I really was attracted to. It was like something that I could do, really get out of my skin, really just like feel comfortable and be a part of. That's what I always wanted to be, was just like fit in.
What were you like in high school? Were you an athlete? Were you, you and I have football in common.
Yeah. So I was an athlete. I wouldn't say I was like a scholar at all. I was just an athlete. I was kind of a likable guy, I think most people liked me. I would say most people liked me, except for probably the ones I was an asshole to, because I'm sure I was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was an athlete. I was like I was a really good football player, and so I ended up playing in like all-star games, being like having these like different nominations and stuff throughout high school. But football was my main thing. I played soccer growing up, but once I got into high school, it was like, okay, I get to focus on football now.
Right.
And so yeah, I kind of fit in with a lot of the jocks. I fit in with they called them like preppy kids. Is that still a thing? I don't know.
I think so. I don't know. Yeah.
So I grew up in Modesto. There's like a heavy Latino community, and also a lot of Caucasians. I'm half and half, so I fit in with. I felt like I fit in with everybody,
Yeah.
And when it came to like the partying and stuff, I even felt like I fit in more. And so I would lie to my parents. I would tell them I was staying the night at someone's house, or we were doing like a late night bowling event, or it was really one of those two.
Right.
And we would just be partying. But I always had to be home for Sunday so I can go to church, that Sunday. So that was my weekend routine, as a junior and senior in high school, and then even going I played a year of junior college football prior to transferring to the University of Utah.
So were you getting recruited in high school, or the grades weren't there?
The grades, I was such a poor student.
Yeah.
And looking back, because in recovery we have a lot of time to like reflect, and I used to blame all of the reasons why I didn't get things the way that I wanted them to be on other people. But as I reflected, like I didn't even have like, I literally had right below a 2.0 GPA, but because I had ADHD, they graduated me. Which because I had ADHD, I was able to play football in college because they're like, oh, you know, he has a learning disability.
So you had an IEP and all that.
Yeah. So
okay.
so I had like this. I don't know I don't know exactly what it's called, but it's kind of like a program. If you have ADHD, you kind of you get more time for studying. You get to take tests a little bit longer.
Yeah, that's an IEP, individual education
Yes,
plan.
that's exactly what it was. Yep. So I had one of those.
Okay.
I think I'd gotten recruited by a few people, but literally I was so entitled because my brother was my brother, who's an excellent older brother, was a starter at Brigham Young University.
Okay.
He went to he's 8 years older than me, so he had already gone to the combine in Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm.
He signed as a free agent to a couple teams in the NFL, played in NFL Europe, and so I was just so entitled. I'm like, this is like
my brother did it. So
my brother did it, so they should
me.
just give it to me. Exactly. Like my attitude was just so poor, but I was a bad investment.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even have the grades
Mm-hmm.
to. Anyways, I didn't have the grades to kind of like back up somebody putting faith in me. So I went the junior college route, and
Where'd you go to junior college?
Modesto Junior College.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
MJC Pirates, go Pirates.
Yeah.
Which was a good experience for me.
Right.
It was like a glorified high school. Not all the pressure of college. I got to live at home and still play football. And then from there, I actually played football there with my brother-in-law. His name is Ben Moa. He was a super high recruit. He was just he's just an elite athlete. Anyone who knows him knows, he is. And so he ended up getting recruited to the University of Utah. And I went to the University of Utah as a preferred walk-on with the goal of getting a scholarship. That was my path forward. Anyways, I do that. I transfer to the University of Utah. I have a great experience my first year there. I redshirt. Coach Ron McBride's my coach. At the end of that year, I actually choose to go on a Mormon mission. So I left. Actually, Coach McBride left and went to coach at Weber State University. Mm-hmm. They brought in Urban Meyer. So Urban Meyer was there for 2 years.
That's right. Urban Meyer was in Utah. Right. That's right.
Crushed it. Absolutely crushed it. So all of my guys who I played with, before leaving on my mission, they all just had these awesome experiences going to these, different bowls and being champions and stuff.
And Urban Meyer, I watched that Netflix video of him with Florida.
Oh yeah,
he was no joke.
No,
man.
he was no joke.
You didn't play for him unless you were freaking mentally tough, right?
Yeah, so, he really brought the best out of people, and I know some people that was hard to deal with, but he created championship teams.
Yeah.
And calling people forward is a tough thing to do as a leader. Mm-hmm. And it's tough to digest, as an individual, like someone basically calling you out saying, hey, you can do more. Mm-hmm. It's tough to hear sometimes. Yeah. And we're so young at that age. We're what, 18, 19, 20, 21. It's just, there's still a lot of growth to happen.
Sure.
So I went on a church mission. And I'll talk a little bit about my sobriety, if that's okay.
Absolutely, yeah. No, that's what we're here for.
Okay, awesome.
Your story, yeah.
So, from the time I went to the University of Utah till I was about 24, I didn't drink. I didn't do anything. I was kind of on a mission for health. Also, my religion. It was important for me to kind of follow those guidelines.
So you put everything on pause when you left JUCO and went to.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
As far as any of my drinking, partying, I was just really focused actually on becoming a better athlete and just at least with my physical body, giving it what I can. And so I served a church mission. I come back and
Where'd you go?
I went to Detroit,
Okay.
Michigan.
Nice.
Yeah, that actually was an awesome experience for me. I loved it.
So for people that don't know, in the Mormon faith, right? Tell me if I'm getting this right.
Okay.
You go on a mission as a young male, and you decide when you go. You go for 2 years? Is that correct?
Yep. 2
Okay.
years.
And what is that like? What are the rules? What do you do?
Oh, dude. I think they've changed now, but what they were like when I was on my mission, it was like extremely structured. So, but also there was like a lot of freedom. So there's like a lot of personal accountability there. So what that looked like is I was called to Detroit. So my first area was on 8 Mile and Telegraph. And essentially 8 Mile divides the city of Detroit from the suburbs. And so half of my first area was in the inner city, half of it was in the suburbs. And there's a distinct difference in Detroit between the city of Detroit and outside of Detroit. And a lot of people ride bikes. I rode a bike almost every day of my mission. And the purpose is to just, spread the word of God.
Okay.
Like teach people about Jesus Christ, teach
Right.
people about the Mormon religion.
Okay.
Is the purpose of it. The neat thing about my mission was we got to do a lot of service too. And so I felt like we did tons of good outside of just like trying to teach people about our religion.
Yeah.
And so I did that for 2 years. You have one other person, you stick with that person. It changes about every 3 to 6 months who that person is, but there's basically just two of you going out in every neighborhood in Detroit. I eventually, after my first 6 months, I moved to the inner city, a place called Mexican Town, and I had to learn Spanish on my mission.
Oh, wow.
So I became fluent in Spanish, which is
That's cool.
Cool. Yeah, that was really neat. And so yeah, you stick with that one. You stick with another elder is what it's called for the entirety of your mission, and it switches every 3 to 6 months.
Got it.
All young dudes.
Got it.
Like literally, we're all just young. And you know what it's like to be young. You think you know stuff.
Yeah.
And like I thought I knew so much, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I got all the answers. But
Yeah.
as I've gotten older, I realize like even now I don't know anything.
No, the older you get, the more you know that you don't know everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I did that for 2 full years, and a majority of my mission was in the inner city, and I loved the people. I loved, the opportunities. I'm not a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I have family members who are active members. Just as I've gotten to recovery, I've had kind of my own like faith journey.
Right.
And but super grateful for my upbringing.
For that
and-
experience.
yeah, that experience.
Okay, so you get back from your mission. You go back to the University of Utah.
Yep.
You get back on the football team.
I do.
Okay.
Yep. So
Tell me about that.
At that point, Coach Whittingham is the head coach, and so again, it's the same situation.
He's still there.
He's there.
Yeah,
Yep, he's there.
He's a
dude,
stud.
Man.
He's probably got to be the longest standing head coach in NCAA right now.
Do you think?
I mean, I can't think of anybody that's been longer.
Well, yeah, maybe for the same team.
Yeah,
right.
that's what I'm
he's
saying.
Been there forever.
Right, yeah.
Dude has been there forever. Yeah. He's a dude.
Yeah.
He's such a good guy too.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a little bit about a story that kind of goes into my alcoholic thinking. So I get on with him, and it's the same plan. You come here, you earn a spot, and I wasn't going to classes. At that time, I wasn't upholding my end of the bargain.
But you're not drinking.
But I'm not drinking at the time.
Okay.
But I'm still entitled.
Yeah.
I'm still selfish,
Still have all
self-centered,
that behavior.
self-seeking.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
Oh, dude. Yeah, it's there. And I don't get along with my tight ends coach. I feel like he's got it out for me. He doesn't. He and I don't vibe. There's like I'm not starting, which I obviously in my mind, my delusional mind, I feel like I should be.
Yeah.
Well, I actually didn't feel like I should be, but because there were plenty of great athletes there, but I just felt like he was holding me back. He was holding me down. So I get to the point at the very end of the season, I quit, and I'm done with this. Coach Whittingham calls me. We have a bowl game. Coach Whittingham says, "Hey, Daniel, why don't you come back? Come back for the bowl game. Come back, and you can come play linebacker." I was playing tight end at the time,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm also like, I love defense.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "Come play linebacker for me." And Kalani Satake was the linebackers coach at the time, who's currently the head coach at Brigham Young
Right.
University, where two of my nephews play.
Okay.
And I couldn't.
And you got a nephew at OCC, by the way, right?
And I got my nephew at OCC.
That's my spot. Go
Yep,
Pirates. I
yep.
coached there, and my oldest son played there.
And
so.
their spring game is May 15th, for those of you watching, if you're
Okay.
able to see it.
I'm going with you. Let's
All
go.
right,
Yeah.
Bet.
Yeah.
So he says, "Come back, play in the bowl game, have this experience, come play linebacker for me." I couldn't wrap my mind around letting my ego and fear go to walk back and take advantage of that opportunity. What an opportunity.
Right. The head coach calls you.
Dude, having the head coach call you and tell you, "Hey,
As
why
a
don't
walk-on.
Yeah, we want you to come back. I want you to play linebacker."
Uh-huh.
Obviously, he sees something. He
Yeah.
sees potential. He sees how I can be a benefit to the team
Right.
or whatever. But I couldn't let my ego go. I'd already left,
Yeah.
and so when I leave, dang
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
I'm gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, so that's where my mindset was at the time. So fast forward maybe a couple years, and I go and I play at Weber State
Mm-hmm.
for half a season, but I have this like entitled, just this terrible attitude. Weber State's not as good as University of Utah. Like, this isn't what I've signed up for. Just delusional thinking,
Mm-hmm.
and not seeing the gift in all of these things, because all of these gifts were laid right before
Yeah.
me. I just was oblivious to them.
Yeah.
And so I eventually quit that team too. And
Were you still not drinking at that point?
I was not drinking at that
Okay.
point still. Yeah. But before long, I want to say probably within 6 months of quitting the Weber State team, I started to get into some marijuana,
Mm-hmm.
some drinking. I was probably about 24 at the time. 23, 24 at the time. And I'm liking the way it makes me feel. And you know what else it does? It helps me to cope with the choices that I had made.
Right.
I was unaware that I was feeling so bad about, the way I'd navigated things, and I was so resentful, to the University of Utah, to my coach, to, Weber State for not being as elite as the University of Utah, and
Right.
all of these other things that I blamed on other people. That's what helped me cope. I started
Yeah.
drinking to kind of cope, and then I got into. I eventually actually got into OxyContin. OxyContin was another way to help me feel good about where I was.
How'd you get into that? Was it a pain thing at first, or you just found them? People were doing them.
So, people were doing them, and this was, I don't know, was it 2008, 2009,
Yeah.
something like that, when they were really popular.
Yeah. Yeah, they were coming around right before I got sober, and I started doing them my last year.
Yeah. So you remember.
Yeah, I got sober in 06. So yeah.
You used to be able to
05.
break them down, and
Mhm.
you could snort them, you
That's
could
what we
smoke
would
them.
do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would snort them too.
Mhm.
And then they eventually reformulated it, so it was like you couldn't really.
Oh, I didn't know
snort
they
'em.
did that.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
They ruined
Yeah.
our lives. How dare they?
Yeah.
No, so people around me were doing OxyContin, and it kind of became a thing in Utah. Especially because with the Mormon culture, it seemed to be more allowable than like going and using heroin.
Right.
They're like, oh, it's a prescription drug.
Mm-hmm.
It's prescribed by a doctor. We can use it. You
Yeah.
know, it's okay.
It's not as bad.
It's not as bad. Yeah. Yeah. It's not. And you know, and it was being pitched as not as bad too.
Right.
But we know in retrospect, it's contributed to hundreds of thousands of deaths.
Sure.
So my people I was around were doing it. I was always like, don't do that stuff. You know, people are dying. And then I tried one and I was like, okay.
That's why people are doing it.
This stuff is amazing.
Right.
It helps you to feel good no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it takes physical pain away, but then it takes emotional pain away.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't, and I didn't have to think about what life was like for me, you know, in those days and how unhappy I was with where I was at. And I didn't have to, and that was my coping mechanism kind of for how my life had ended up. I had always envisioned myself, oh, you're going to go on a mission, you're going to go to college, you're going to play in the NFL, you know, just like these, just this very narrow and straight line of how things needed to be. And it was like the moment things got tough, I quit. I didn't know how to cope. You know, any deviation from what I needed things to be, someone else's fault, you know? So I got into that stuff pretty heavy, but I stopped drinking when I was using that stuff. So that was good. I was like, oh, I don't have a drinking problem.
Right.
Like, I'm fine. I just need, you know, a few of these every few hours and I'm good to go.
Yeah.
I started selling them. And I started selling them initially for profit. Then I just started selling them to support my habit. Then I started selling them, and when I say selling them, I mean just using them.
Right.
They were sent to me, and I was supposed to sell them and split the profits, and I was just paying somebody half at that point and using them all.
Yeah.
And then life continued to get to just, you know, life threw things my way, which I did not know how to cope with. I had an experience with my ex-wife where she had an affair, and that was completely out of my scope of even potentially being possible, you know? Imagine how big my ego was.
Right.
This kid in high school who was popular, who was an athlete, generally liked by people, you know? And then this happens.
Right.
And I just couldn't wrap my mind around it, but I also couldn't let anyone else know.
Yeah.
You know, I couldn't let my best friends know. I couldn't let family members know.
Kept it secret.
Kept it, dude.
Yeah.
I just went like this. I took all of it and I just went, shh, shh, shh.
Yeah.
Stuff it. And because that was my ego. You know, I didn't want anyone to see me as being inadequate.
Right.
You know, someone who can't take care of his family, who can't take care of his wife, you know. And so I would just stuff those feelings, and my way of coping was substances.
Yeah.
Because substances helped me get out of my feelings.
Yeah.
It got to the point where I was using OxyContin, drinking, taking Valiums, taking my Adderall, literally not wanting to wake up taking my Ambien, not wanting to wake up the next day.
Yeah.
Like, that's where I was at. I was like, I was not like, I don't know if I would say like courageous enough. I was just so scared to actually do self-harm. But every night I was like, oh, if I don't wake up tomorrow, you know, that's fine with me.
Yeah.
That feels like the right thing for me.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny, like self-reflection and kind of looking back on my life, it's like all this programming, especially being around athletics and then where I grew up in East Texas and all this programming of what a man is.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and all these lies we're told.
Oh,
it's
dude.
like, you got to keep your shit together, right? Like, you know, you need to be controlling everything.
Yeah, dude.
Don't show emotions.
Yep.
We're petrified to let people know who we really are.
Yeah, your value
Right.
is equal to what you can do for the team.
Yeah, Right.
You know,
Exactly.
if you can do this,
Yeah.
Chris,
Yeah.
I love you.
Yeah.
If you can't, hey man,
Yeah.
we got someone else.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of our sport. And it's
Yeah.
also the, you know,
Yeah, when we internalize those
yeah,
feelings.
Yeah, when we internalize those feelings, because that sport is a microcosm of life and your career and things like that. But like all this stuff about what defines a man it's all lies.
It's all lies.
Yeah.
It's like absolutely backwards
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, grown men don't cry.
Mm-hmm.
You got to keep your family together. You know, tough it out.
Mm-hmm.
Get up, wipe it off. I mean, some of those tenets are like good. It is important to
Sure.
be strong and move forward. Continue
moving
to take
forward,
the next
right?
dedicated step.
Mhm.
You know, those are things that we've learned.
Yeah, pain of discipline or pain of regret. I love that saying. Like
Yep.
all that stuff. But dealing with our emotional well-being and mental health, like you're saying, man, your wife cheated on you, but you don't have anywhere to turn
No, dude.
with that at the time.
Oh, and check this out. At the same time, so coupled with that, I got excommunicated from my church.
Oh,
So my family life and my church life, the two lives that I had known my whole life, was like broken.
And why did that happen?
I'm not 100% certain.
Okay.
All I know is, well, I can tell you my experience with it. So we both go and we talk to our ecclesiastical leader, which was the bishop, and then we end up talking to a stake president. And I was like so walled off and so hurt and closed off and full of ego, excuse me, that I just wanted her to, you know, get disciplined, you know, just take care of this person. Like, I was so hurt.
And did this come out in that, like her affair come out in this situation?
Well,
in the
no.
church?
Well, that's the reason why we went and talked to them after
it.
that.
Got it.
Then we go and talk to them maybe like the next week or two or whatever,
Mhm.
and we're gonna put together like a repentance process, you know, for her. You know, that's all. That's all I was there for. I was like, we just need to figure out how to make this person right, you know, and so in that process, I think probably my attitude was like very much just nonchalant. Like I would get asked a question like, you know, is there anything that you have never not repented for? And I'm like, I mean, I use drugs and I sold drugs. Why are you talking to me? Is like was kind of like my attitude. So I imagine some of that had something to do with it. All in all, I mean, I actually ended up getting rebaptized when I got sober, and my bishop at the time was like, I'm not really sure why you were excommunicated, you know. And honestly, for me, in the moment, it hurt, but also it was just like it was all hurt for me. You know, it was all kind of just like hurt. It wasn't until much later that I was kind of able to like process it and be like, oh, you know, maybe that wasn't the right call. But also, we're firm believers in there's nothing in our path that we regret or wish to close the door on.
Right.
You know, and like this whole path that we've taken brought us to where we are now, where we're able to like really affect and help people.
Yeah.
And so as I look back, I'm grateful for, you know, all of those experiences, because my mentor told me this. The level of healing I've done for myself is a level of impact I'm able to have on other people, and I see it with you. You know, you've done a lot of work on yourself in these years in recovery, that you are able to help change the trajectory of someone's life, you know, just like people did for us.
Yeah, that's what we do. Okay, so that's all going on with your marriage, your church life's falling apart, you're all alone, right? You don't have, and then so where does it go from there?
So from there, I am just a mess, dude. I am a mess. So I want to say that happened when I was like 25 or 26. And from 26 till we got divorced when I was 31, I was just drinking and masking and using substances to cope with life and to cover my feelings and to mask my feelings. And so I was like very verbally abusive. Like I wasn't a good partner.
Mm-hmm.
You know, anything I wanted to do was, if there was ever a question about me drinking, you know, using something, it was always like, well, what would you do if you were in this situation, or if this had happened to you? And basically being like abusive.
Yeah.
I was absolutely verbally abusive, you know.
Yeah.
I see that today.
Yeah.
You know. And so that eventually led my ex-wife to file for divorce, which I was a man. I don't divorce anybody, you know.
Yeah.
So I wrote it out the worst way possible, until she was finally like,
She'd had enough.
sick of your shit, dude. Like this isn't working, you know? And it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't. And so we end up getting divorced. I'm 31 at the time. So from 31 to 34, I just continue to self-destruct,
Right.
you know? I've always been given opportunities with like work and stuff, and I always found a way to blow those up. You know, people want to give me more responsibility and more of a leadership role, and I like the idea, but then I'll immediately go and start drinking or using opiates and then not show up for work for like a few days.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm that good.
Yeah.
That's wild. You know, I'm like so delusional at this point. So anyways, in that 3-year span, I found some moments of like not drinking and not using. I'd given up opiates for, I want to say like a few years at that point. I started taking Suboxone. I was abusing Suboxone too for a couple years. And then I just quit it cold turkey because I didn't have money to keep buying Suboxone.
And that last couple of years was alcohol.
Just alcohol, bro.
Yeah.
Just alcohol.
And just alcohol is
It's a sad place to be,
it's a
brother.
lonely.
And
Yeah. At
I
least for
liked
me,
it though
was
too.
Pitiful. Yeah.
I didn't want people to see, you know, the way that I drank.
Right.
So I would go party with people, and then I would like have my little secret stuff too.
Yeah.
And I'd be drinking in private.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, so fast forward, you have that moment where you make that call to go to rehab,
yep.
and you come to California. Do you mind if I ask where you went to rehab?
No.
Yeah. Where'd you go?
I went to Beachside.
Oh, Beachside. Okay.
It's a Premier Health Group program.
Right. Okay. So you went to Beachside. That's Art.
Yeah.
Art's
yeah.
place.
That's
Yeah.
Art's
Art's
place.
one of my guys in my men's circle that I've been around forever. Yeah, that's my guy. All right. So you went to Beachside, right? And what was that like? You went into treatment. You'd never been to treatment before. All right. What happened to you in that first 30 days?
Oh man. Well, I can tell you when I first was going in, I was kind of scared. I was like, is this like a prison situation?
Right.
Like, do I gotta yelk someone up like my first 30 seconds to prove myself?
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I was pretty scared, but I remember walking through the door, and I remember it like it was yesterday, Chris. Like my friend, who's still my friend to this day, still clean and sober. His name is Shaggy. Shaggy came up, and he like, just with the biggest smile on his face, he's like, hey, what's up? Like, what are you in here for? I'm like, oh, no. He said, what's your DOC? I said, I'm not sure what that means. He's like,
Right. Yeah.
he's like,
And for people that don't know what that means, drug of choice, right?
yeah. He's like, I'm like, I don't know what that means. He's like, what were you like? What was your problem? I was like, oh, just drinking.
Uh-huh.
And he's like, oh, okay, cool, man. Like, he's like, yeah, mine was drinking and heroin. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool, man.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, dude, I'm really happy to have you here. He was just very warm.
Yeah.
So immediately I was like, whew.
And people don't I always tell this story. This guy remembered my name in a meeting. The second time I went to a meeting, he's like, hey, Chris, I don't even remember who this guy was. That made me feel so welcome that I went back to the next one, you know?
Yeah,
And it's
dude.
like that moment, those moments of kindness when we're in that spot,
Yeah. So powerful, man.
they are powerful.
It's that,
Yeah.
like that 2 millimeter shift that puts me in a place
Yeah.
where, hey, I'm not comfortable to, hey,
Yeah.
I'm open.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, Shaggy just talked to you,
Shaggy
and he's just
talks
like
to me.
broke down a huge wall.
Huge wall,
without,
man.
Without probably even knowing how much of an effect he had on you.
Yeah.
Just being a good dude, right?
Just being a good
So,
dude.
Yeah.
And so I'll tell you, I'll kind of tell you this, and I'll get into the rest of my 30 days. But they're the first couple of days, they're like, okay, you just make sure you guys are getting a sponsor and working the steps. I heard that probably, I don't know, 10, 15 times.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what the hell that means.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been to AA. The only exposure I had to, I haven't been to like any 12-step meetings. The only 12-step meetings I was exposed to was like AA on TV or something
Mhm.
like that. And it's very generic, you know, what
Mhm.
the things that happen
Sure.
on TV. So they have these big posters. You've seen and probably seen them at different detoxes or rehabs, and it has all the 12 steps. And so they're like, you got to work the steps and you got to get a sponsor. I'm like, well, I don't know what that means.
Right.
They're like, "See, the steps, the steps are right there. You get a sponsor and you work them." And I'm like, okay, well, I don't think I need a sponsor. So I go out there and I start reading them, and I'm reading the first step. All right, I did that. Second step. All right, I did that. And in my mind, I'm just checking them off as if I'm like going through them.
Yeah.
And I think I get through probably like 4 or 5 steps. And I'm like, all right, I know the bad things I've done. You
Yeah.
know, I'm willing to make amends.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like 8, 9. Like,
Yeah.
should I call my family right now and tell them I'm sorry? You know.
Yeah.
But I quickly found that that's not how the steps are worked.
Right.
You know. And so I ended up getting a sponsor. Even in my first 30 days, never talked to him, but I got up the courage to ask another man to be my sponsor because
Mhm.
I liked what he had, which was seemingly like a way out.
Yeah.
You know, a way out. And I stayed in arts program for over 90 days.
Nice.
I ended up getting another sponsor who had worked a couple of steps with me. And then during that time, I dedicated a year to myself in Southern California. I said, I really love the recovery community. It took a couple times, but I connected with these dudes, and I like Chris. Chris is one of my mentors.
Yeah.
And Brian's one of my mentors. Chris
Right.
W.
Yeah.
Brian C. Those were dudes that I looked up to in early recovery, like while I was still in my program.
Yeah.
I looked up to those guys and I was like, man, I want to be like that. And so I tried to emulate them. You know, they were always going to meetings. They talked about working the steps. They seemingly practiced like the things that they learned in their daily life. They
Yeah.
seemed to be at peace with themselves,
Yeah.
you know, and helpful to other people. And that was attractive to me.
Yeah.
And I wanted that. So I just tried to follow those dudes. Like I said, commit a year to myself down here. I ended up getting a sponsor. This is a funny story how I got my sponsor. So, like I said, I got rebaptized when I was into the Mormon church, when I was early in recovery. And there was another gentleman. The Mormon church has something called ARP. It's called Addiction Recovery Program.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like a 12-step program, but it's also like heavy into like the church processes
faith,
and stuff.
yeah.
And so I met some guy there, and he was like, hey, do you want to come to church in like Mission Viejo on Sunday? I'm speaking. I was like, yeah, I'll definitely come. He's like, oh yeah, my sponsor's going to be there. I was like, all right, cool. So I go there, and I meet his sponsor, and then I ask him if he'll be my sponsor, and he was. And his name's Brent W. And he's like super awesome guy, man. Just like emulation of love, you know?
That's great.
So we were very regimented every week. I did my assignments. I did my readings. I showed up. I met with him. And I don't know how many months it took. Maybe 4, 5, 6 months. I don't know. Maybe a year. I don't really remember. But we were consistent, and we worked through all the steps. And that was my first complete like life-changing experience where like my perspective on the world went from one thing to something completely different. Like I'm talking like day and night.
Mm-hmm.
Like my life was this way, and I was certain that it was the right way because this is who I am. This is it's just inherent in me, you know, and I'm a smart guy and I have the answers, you know, to this. Like, you don't know that much. You don't have the best perspective on things.
Right.
It's not your plan.
Yeah.
You're not in control. And that was like completely foreign to me.
Isn't that a freeing thing though when you realize that? I mean, you grow up like trying to control everything and hide everything and put a face on with everything, and you go get in a recovery program, whatever that is, and you're just like, it's not my plan, it's God's plan. It's not, you know, I don't got to be this thing I'm not. And I have guys I can go to that I talk to when I'm scared or I'm broken or I'm not knowing what to do, and I have people I can admit things to, and you know, it's just so like freeing, you know.
I wish everybody could experience what we get to experience, you know, in 12-step programs. And I think to a certain extent, like, you know, people who like of different religious faiths have some of that. Mm-hmm. But the raw vulnerability of two men is like, I don't even know how to explain other than like it's like godly, you know, like God is there.
Absolutely.
When I would think of the, you know, feeling God's spirit when I hear different spiritual messages in church or in other situations, I felt so connected in that same spirit in these 12-step rooms, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's because like we're all literally holding on for dear life, man.
Yeah.
We barely grabbed on, you know? And it's like we have this whole new perspective on life. And, you know, the more time I've gotten and like reflect back, it's this whole new life that I could have never, ever even told my old self.
Yeah.
Like, this is what's available for you.
Yeah.
You know? I couldn't even have imagined it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so how long you been sober now?
6.5 years.
6.5 years. And so tell me about like, you know, your journey. You're married now.
Yeah,
you got
man.
a great job. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you're getting ready to have a kid. If your phone rings, it might be right
Yeah,
now.
oh my gosh,
Are
I
you
gotta check.
checking it? You better check it.
No, she
All right.
hasn't.
She's good? Okay.
She's good. I have a ton of other messages, but not one from my wife yet.
Okay. That's good. So tell me about that. When did you and your wife meet?
Oh, okay. So we actually met when I was in at Art's Place.
Oh, okay.
When I was at Beachside, I got my phone
Mm-hmm.
and check this out. So I had been in that 3-year period. I had been just such a degenerate on Tinder, you know, looking for something to fulfill an emptiness inside of me. You know, we look toward all different things.
We tease you guys, like all us guys that have been married 15, 16 years, like we had to actually walk up and talk to girls.
Good old days. Huh? Now we're just swiping.
Right.
But before I got sober, so from 31 to 34, I was just, you know, trying to fill that void.
Right.
The same thing I did with like substances, I did in like relationships.
Mm-hmm.
You know, very selfish, self-seeking, self-centered. When I got sober, it was like I had this relief finally, and I didn't want to lose it. And so I remember talking with, you know, one of my good friends, Brian, who was working at Beachside at the time. And just through our conversation, it was like, you know what? Like, if I meet somebody, it's just to have a connection.
Yeah.
I don't want to risk it. He's like, I've seen all these people relapse because they're, they get crazy into steroids. They continue to use people, And I was so scared of that, dude. Like him telling me that was enough for me to say, I want to try something different. I just want to try and like have a genuine connection and see where that goes. Anyways, so I met my wife on Bumble when I was probably just like 2 months sober. I just barely got my phone back. She lived in like the Chino area.
Yeah.
And we just started talking, you know, and we continued talking. I was so focused on my recovery. From the beginning, I always told her, like, this comes first because this gives me everything else. Like the guy you like talking to today, you wouldn't have liked him 6 months ago.
Yeah.
You know, everything that I have now is because of this program. And so this has to come first for me. And she was like 100% supportive. In fact, she was like, I know you're not, you know, you had mentioned something about not dating in the first year of recovery. She's like, and, you know, we can just take a split and you can just do your thing. And I talked to my sponsor about that. And because that was a concern of mine. And he just gave me his experience on it and his thoughts on it. And, you know, my wife's Normie. She's not in recovery. Just a super supportive individual. But we continued dating up until the pandemic happened. And when the pandemic happened, we moved in together and then bought a home. And,
Nice.
Yep.
Here you are.
Haven't looked back.
Waiting to go to the hospital.
I know. So when we went last week, I was telling her, like, I got teary-eyed as we were driving in the hospital thinking of, you know, bringing this child into the world. And I was like, I can't imagine. I couldn't have fathomed where my life is today. You know, I look back and just like all the gifts, all of the blessings that recovery has given me, all of the opportunities it's given me, and all of the great people that I have in my life. Because, you know, we've both like made money outside of recovery. Money isn't the answer.
Yeah.
You know, money ain't the answer.
Yeah.
Money serves a purpose, but the thing that I have in recovery today is like genuine connection with people.
Yeah.
And desire to help people and a connection with myself.
Yeah.
Which I feel like I never had, and a connection with a higher power that I feel like I learned growing up in my religion, but I've even been able to kind of expand, you know, and just put a lot of faith there.
And so I have two more questions for you. Number one is, you know, and the longer I'm in recovery, the more I realize that line in the book that we read, we only know a little. Right, and I really have other things that I do in my life mechanically for my mental health and well-being. Exercise is a huge part of my life, right? Meditation is a huge part of my life. What is it that you do out, you know, I know you're really into exercise. Like, what are other things you do for your mental health and well-being?
So I have like morning rituals that I do. So what I'll do in the morning is I'll do and this is for my mental health. Because as you know, well, working in the behavioral health space, it's very kind of like taxing, you know, emotionally, mentally. And if we get into it, and it's probably with every industry, if you get into it, if that's the first thing I get into during the day, I'm off.
Right.
And you won't see me until, you know, 4 or 5 o'clock, but I'm just on autopilot. So in the mornings, I'm really intentional. And my intention is to not look at social media, though sometimes I do for a couple minutes. But I used to just like death scroll in the morning.
Right.
You know, not look at my emails. I'll do a meditation. I will do an uplifting reading. I will write in a journal, a gratitude journal. I will get an exercise in, and I will do like a cold plunge, like an ice plunge.
Oh, nice. Where do you do the cold plunge?
I do it at this It's a place called Vim and Vigor.
Okay.
It's kind of a funny name, but it's out there by.
It's
where I
for
live.
cold plunges.
Yeah, well, no.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's actually a spa. I mean, it's
Okay.
a fitness center,
Okay.
but they just have one.
Oh, that's where you work out, and they have a cold
yeah,
plunge.
yeah.
Yeah, my gym needs to get a cold plunge.
Yeah, dude, that was like a game changer for me.
Yeah.
But it just gets me in the right headspace because my intention is every day to, to show up as my best self
Sure.
and just to do whatever the universe or God has for me, just to walk that line and
Yeah.
take the next indicated step.
Yeah. All right, last question. I ask this to everybody. What's your message to that person that's out there struggling in that state that you were in where you just didn't know what to do, where to turn? What's your message to that person that might be struggling with addiction, mental health, or whatever? Like, what is your message to that person that's just having a hard time right now and doesn't know where to turn?
So my message would be to myself, 6.5 years ago. And it would be, there is a way out. There are people that love you. There are people that are here to help you and walk you down that path. When things feel impossible and at their darkest, chance actually means choice.
Right.
And so if that's a place that you're at and you're struggling, I would encourage you to reach out to somebody and step into that vulnerability.
Love it. All right. Well, Daniel, thank you for coming on. That
Thanks
was
so
an
much, Chris.
awesome hour that we just spent together.
I love you, man.
Love you too, man.
Okay.
So, good job.
Thanks, brother.
All right.